Hi, I am Phil Rosenberg, and you are watching The Phil Rosenberg Show. Today is a very special day for me. As you know, I am a chess teacher and a chess player, and so it's always my pleasure to interview people that are really ensconced in the world of chess, teaching, playing, and so on. So today, we have Jerald Times with me, and thank you very much, Jerald, for joining me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the invitation, Philip. Yeah.
No problem. No problem. So Jerald is a national master. He is also the director of chess programs at Success Academy, which, by the way, has over 40 schools in the tri-state area and that number of chess programs. So he sees a lot of chess. He does. He describes those programs, interestingly, by the way, as holistic. And so when you relate that word to medicine, it means that the doctor is looking at your whole body and not just the place that the symptom is coming from. So if you're a holistic doctor and your patient has a headache, you're not just going to try to solve the pain in the person's head. You're going to be looking at their whole body and asking what might be happening in the system that might be affecting the head, that causing the headache. So I'm interested to learn what that means for chess, and we'll talk about that. So he's taught chess around the world in the townships of South Africa. Twice he was featured in the New York Times for his work as an educator in chess. So he is, however, not here today as a representative of Success Academy. Today he's a member of the wider community of chess players, chess teachers, and we are, all of us, of course, concerned. I would argue that ever since about the early 90s, but 1993, there came a film, Searching for Bobby Fischer. And at that time, I think chess really caught on in the imagination of parents, especially. People, they wanted their kids to learn how to play chess. All of a sudden, it just walked through a window into popular culture. Something happened there, I think. That's what I date that moment. So in 2019, though, if you fast forward, there were over 1,200 weekly chess programs around New York City, including the boroughs. Yeah. At this moment, there's less than half that. That's Saturday, May 16th, 2020, 11 o'clock in the morning. And that is, of course, because of the pandemic we've all been enduring. They all operate exclusively online. And as we get closer to June, that finishes up the spring semester and we head into the summer. The ordinary course of events is for us to either work over the summer and doing something else completely, perhaps following our passion projects. Also, you might do chess camps or another job, but then in September, when school starts up, you get back into the swing of things. And that's where we are right now. Things are very, very different. Jerald, is it too big a question just to say, to ask her what is going on in the world of chess teaching right now?
Well, definitely. First thing, the over-the-board chess has definitely been affected. Let's look at the USCF. They had 4 nationals this year that were canceled: elementary nationals, junior high school nationals, and also including the all-girls nationals, which is held in Chicago annually. There are obvious concerns, 2,000 people being in the same hotel, the ability for the virus to spread. One chess game can last 3 to 4 hours, particularly in the national championship. One kid can possibly cough on another kid. Droplets can be passed. We would have to consistently clean chess pieces. So there's a lot of concerns about over-the-board chess. So the radical shift now is to online chess. And I do think there are some opportunities for chess teachers in the online venue, but the ability for organizers, chess teachers, we're all going to be affected economically by this shift, and we, I think, have to reinvent ourselves in the new normal.
Let me ask you this, because that just leads me right into my most important question. I guess we're just going to get right to it. By reinventing yourself, do you mean switching from brick and mortar teaching to digital teaching, or do you mean away from chess and into another industry that isn't going to be so heavily affected, or something else entirely, perhaps, or combination?
Right. But this note that the shifts have to be also within context. The whole economy is affected right now, so there is no guarantee that even if you shift to another profession, that it's not going to have some effect overall in regards to what's happening in the economy.
But you could choose. You
Yeah.
could choose, for example, there are some industries that are roughly economy proof, depression proof, recession proof. You could at least aim yourself at those. So, I mean, my question more to just like drill it right down. Are we saying to some people, get into a different boat altogether? Or do you think there's room for all the teachers? There's a lot of teachers out there right now teaching chess in New York City. Let's talk about New York City, a lot of them. Do you think all of those teachers can rationally still have jobs come September teaching chess?
The city is in debt, as you know. Let's be want to be as realistic as possible here. The city's in debt. Arts, sports, chess are often considered the peripheral programs within the schools. If there's going to be cuts, I'm assuming that the cuts are going to come in these areas. But in terms of private lessons, or for example, Chess for Life has still continued its venue in Washington State. ICN here, Impact Coaching Network, has still continued here in New York City. And I think a lot of the schools have to continue through virtual classrooms in terms of chess. So yeah, I mean, I think it will still continue. Chess is not going to die because of the pandemic. But
I'm asking a slightly different question.
Yeah.
I want to refocus.
Yeah.
My question is, given the number of chess teachers in New York City right now that this past year earned a living teaching chess, it's a lot of people. Do you think all of those people should expect to be able to come back to some facsimile of their former job, or do you think some of them are going to be forced out of the industry altogether because there just aren't going to be enough jobs moving forward? And then a follow-up question on that, depending on how you answer.
Right. I mean, you're talking about those companies that employ the largest number of chess teachers. So we have chess in the public sector, for example, Success Academy / chess in the schools. We're more in the public sector. You have chess in the private sector, Dalton, Spire, etc. So I think the private sector is going to have an easier time managing, right? Because they're in terms of their infrastructure and their economics, they're a little bit more secure. The public sector, yes, is going to be affected by it because we are highly dependent upon city funding, municipal funding, sometimes national federal funding. So we are definitely going to be cut, and it will affect our ability to teach inside the classrooms. However, for those teachers who want to once again reshape, or shift shape themselves, I do think there are many online venues that they can use to teach privately, right? But for the most part, we are going to continue with virtual classrooms. Chess is going to be part of those virtual classrooms.
Okay, so you're not saying, you're not saying that a certain number of chess teachers should think about another industry. I'm not hearing those words. So I guess, can I assume that you're saying that? Because
I think that's a personal equation, meaning your ability to maneuver laterally within the professional field is a personal equation based on your education, your resume, your experience, etc. Yes, if you can, and you feel that you should go to a more secure venue that's pandemic proof or recession proof, of course, I would urge some to make it. But I think the majority, and again, I don't have the stats here, but I'm assuming the majorities of chess teachers don't necessarily have that ability for the lateral professional movement. And in that regards, you should think about ways that we can become, number one, continue via virtual classrooms. Number two, continue with online lessons. So and the beauty of chess, by the way, Philip, is that it does lend itself, because we have, whether it's through Lead Chess or ChessBase or ICC, definitely ChessBase, but the ICC, we can still administer quality lessons online.
Good. Well, that's certainly true. I know a lot of chess teachers who have transitioned to online. And I hope that everyone can keep working on it. If they have to, maybe a worst case scenario, not worst case, but maybe one thing to do would be to maintain your relationship to the chess community and do some teaching, but attempt to supplement your income in other ways so that you have an admixture of revenue streams. That might be something to consider as well. And then that'll depend on each individual person. What are their skills outside of teaching? How can they utilize their existing skills to, as you say, move laterally within the job market if it's necessary? And also, one thing to consider is that by the time you realize it's necessary to do that, meaning in September or let's say the end of August, when you find out what your schedule is going to be sometimes, or September, when you find out what your schedule is going to be as a chess teacher, if you wait until then to make the determination as to whether or not you need to move laterally or otherwise, you're in for, unless you can find a job immediately in that lateral movement, you're in some trouble, right? So does it make sense, you think, to start planning now for that kind of movement?
Yeah, but it makes sense. This as a professional in general and someone who has to survive daily. Yeah, for example, at Success Academy, as of April of 2019, we shifted to bachelor's degrees, meaning our hires had to come in with a bachelor's degree. So if you have a BA, your ability to move laterally is a lot easier. But then you have the contact professions, right? So if you are Uber driver, there are people who've always moonlighted by becoming an Uber driver or even a delivery person. But these are contact positions. But yeah, definitely, if you went to college and you had a economics major, one of the things that chess teachers can do, if you have a bachelor's degree, you might even consider becoming a regular school teacher. That's also possible. For me, the reinvention or the shift is personal to three things: A, resume; B, your experience; and three, your education. Right? That is what allows you to maneuver in this environment.
Okay, so that sounds good if you have those things, but in particular, you can't just, suddenly generate an academic degree. And so you might find yourself in a less flexible position than others come September. So that's something to consider if you're in the chess world, because what are we really trying to do here? We're trying to give our friends and colleagues information they can use to, against the nightmare scenario where the chess program you're in that supports you and your rent and your food and your lifestyle, what if it happens to disappear? So I was speaking to Evan Rabin a couple of days ago, interviewing him, and so when you're in a position of having so he has something like 70 chess programs around the country. So if he gets really hard hit and loses half of them, that still means he has the other half of his programs. As someone who has the contracts with the schools, you're in a much better situation if you have a bunch of programs and you can maintain some income, as opposed to a teacher typically is involved with one or two programs, maybe more, could be 3 programs or something like that, but that's it, right? There's going to be small, certainly not 50. There's not enough of you to go around to be helping 50 programs out. So you could suddenly find yourself in a position where you have to scramble. So we want to try to find some advice for our friends and colleagues that, in particular, I want to say, unless you disagree, unless you feel that it's not necessary, maybe folks need to start looking right now before we get to September, finding ways to supplement, make assumptions that, prepare for the downward spiral scenario. What if your program is one of the programs that gets shut down? What will you do? Ask that question now, not in September. Or do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree about your planning in terms of the timeline. By the way, we're only months away from September.
There's a cushion. The problem
is
there's this cushion. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to say there's this cushion because of unemployment insurance, and there's the additional pandemic insurance and the stimulus money. So people are not feeling the desperation like they will when that stuff wears off and the economy is supposed to come back but doesn't completely. That's what I'm really worried about, that moment. What is going to happen? Are we going to go back to the 1970s and 80s New York City? Is that what we're looking at, maybe?
We're looking at astronomical numbers already in terms of unemployment. We're at close to 15% at unemployment, which is higher than the Great Depression. And we have a record number of Americans, over 30 million Americans who have filed for unemployment. So this is not just a chess problem. This is a national problem. Something I think is important to mention was how do we continue in the new normal? And the issue has been the online chess tournaments, and can they be rated chess tournaments? Obviously, the USDF and a lot of chess authorities are hesitant to go in this route because the cheating could possibly arise as a result, particularly if these tournaments are for money during a pandemic. But I do think that we have to start thinking about rating these online tournaments. Beatrice Marinella, former USCF president, wants to actually hold team championships online that would be rated. Chess Kid does give its annual championships. The tournament is rated, but is given a quick rate and is not given a USCF rating. So if tournament organizers can continue in the new normal, the only way for them to continue in the new normal is to have these. The biggest block is the rating of these tournaments. Good news now that whether you're on ICC or whether you're on Lead Chess, we do have computers that can tell if you cheat. I'm sure you've heard about a robo message comes up if a person cheated. It gives them a warning. But that's I think that's one of the things. Can we continue tournament life remotely? Assuming that a vaccination is not going to come within 6 to 7 months from now, let's say February, March, April of 2021. The possibilities that the national championship, the first national championship, which is going to be the one in Orlando, which is the grade school national championship, is a good chance that national championship will not continue, which technically speaking will be the 4th in a row for the United States Chess Federation. So they're getting hit hard. But scholars want to play, right? I mean, our children still want to continue to play chess. So to me, yes, we should think of a way to hold these tournaments remotely. If there is, how do we monitor the cheating online? But it would give the organizers, because when you mention Rabin is a chess organizer, not necessarily just a chess teacher, right? So the chess organizers will be Chess for Life. Even where I am at Success Academy, going forward between September and December, we're thinking that many of our tournaments, in fact, are going to be held remotely. Chess for Life, as I mentioned before, Washington State, they're continuing their virtual classrooms. By the way, I wanted to speak very briefly about the remote learning plan for chess, because it is 3-tiered. Number one, it is online tournaments, as I was speaking for. Number two, it is virtual classrooms, remote learning. And the third tier of remote learning is self-paced learning, meaning any child can go on the internet and watch tutorials, videos, etc. So chess is continuing, right? I think Lead Chess is breaking numbers in terms of number of people playing online. The question is, how do we monetize it, right? Can the organizers now hold tournaments remotely? Can they, as I said, monitor the cheating? Will people?
Not only that, let's ask. Not only how do we monetize it, but how do we avoid a Spotify scenario where the monetization accrues to only a very small group of people that have the platform, the online platform, right? So in other words, how is it? So you may be familiar with Spotify pays pennies to the artist per play, and itself keeps most of the money that's generated through advertising dollars and so on. They pay out very little. So one of the concerns is for all the chess teachers, right, is that if you are doing a tournament with an online platform, who ends up having control of that monetizing process? Does it get down to the level of chess teacher, not just the chess organizers? That's what I think a lot of people are afraid might happen. I mean, like, you don't need, for example, proctor. A chess teacher normally can work at a chess tournament that's happening in a brick and mortar as a tournament director, as a proctor, as in various forms. Will any of those jobs be available for an online chess tournament? You don't need somebody in the room to walk around and do anything, right? I mean, so it really does change the economic picture and the types of jobs that will be available moving forward,
But we have organizers already giving tournaments with some monetary value, usually in a 3-5 minute format, sometimes a 2-second increment format. So it's already happening. It's no need to reinvent the wheel. It's just on a mass scale. A guy like Goisberg, who's the #1 tournament organizer inside the United States, Obviously, he's affected by this. And can he continue his tournaments in some remote fashion? That's really the challenge presently.
Quite interesting. So you've traveled around the world playing, teaching chess. Pretty much just about everywhere that has a chess program has seen you walk by, or places that have wanted one. And at the top of this show, I put forward the idea that chess moving into the mainstream happened at least in part as a reaction to Searching for Bobby Fischer. I'm just wondering, do you agree that that film was a turning point for the industry, or can you pinpoint a time or place that chess crossed over from this esoteric, sort of privileged higher education perception into the mainstream?
I do have a timeline, but first thing, we must not forget the 1972 match with Bobby Fischer. That was one of the demarcation points, I believe, in terms of chess being an American thing. However, Fischer's effect only mostly affected the private sector. In 1991, the New York Times published front page, the Raging Rooks winning the national championships. Maurice Ashley at the time was the coach of that team. 1993, yes, Searching for Bobby Fischer. And then there was a fourth.
When you say Maurice, you mean Maurice Ashley?
Yeah, Maurice Ashley. Yeah, Maurice Ashley coached that team, the Raging Rooks team. I'm going to get back to Maurice in terms of the timeline as well.
Should we let's tell our audience, in case anyone does not know who Maurice Ashley is. I mean, we take it for granted we know who he is, but why don't we just tell anyone that might not know?
By the way, I worked with Maurice between 1993 and 1997. Maurice, in 1999, became the first Black Grandmaster in the world. The title Grandmaster was first officially given by FIDE in 1950. So it took 49 years for a Black chess player to reach that title. By some, it's considered the highest title in chess, but technically speaking, it's the second highest title in chess. World Champion is the highest title. Grandmaster is the second highest title. There are millions of chess players, but there are only 1,500 Grandmasters in the world. If I can give some additional numbers here, there are 5,000 brain surgeons. There's hundreds of thousands of PhDs, but there's only 1,500 Grandmasters. So it is considered one of the most difficult things to achieve.
Wow. I didn't realize that, how small a group of people it is. So I'm wondering though, so let me re-ask the question. When do you think, so you think the match between Fischer and, was it Karpov?
Spassky. In 1972, yeah.
That's what brought it into, but at that time, did you see a lot of chess programs popping up in the schools?
I learned chess because of Fischer and Spassky, right? I mean, it became popular. But I do agree with your timeline, right? Because
that's one moment in time for chess.
Yeah,
a big moment in time for chess, Fischer, Spassky.
Right.
What's next?
But your point about it being an esoteric and mostly in the private sector is for sure. Chess is an affluent sport. You need leisure, you need time, you need resources to develop chess minds. But so 1991 was the front page in the New York Times. 1993 was the Searching for Bobby Fischer film. And then there was a very important study called the Margilis Report. Stuart Margilis, by the way, is the EDD from Columbia University. His report showed the positive correlation between chess and reading scores. Now, we always knew the relationship between chess and mathematics, logical sequencing, abstract reasoning, calculation. But Margilis now showed the positive relationship between chess and reading. Now we had a reason to bring it inside the schools, right? Chess makes you a better test taker. Chess in the schools began funding, particularly inside the inner city. I mean, I was recruited initially to teach inside of the Mott Hall School, I think in Marcus Garvey Park at the time. So I got a job as a Black chess master. But mostly due to the fact that we now had a reason why chess was effective for young people.
So let's hyper-focus for a sec on the world of chess, teaching, learning, and tournaments. How have things changed? I guess, okay, without antibody testing, without sufficient antibody testing, without sufficient testing in general, and without a vaccine, is it possible that we're just in a regressive phase here I guess we're focusing on chess, but perhaps chess acts as a metaphor for society at large. Are we facing a contraction that, from you just enunciated a really fascinating timeline, some of which I was not aware of, and I'm going to do a bit more research on, so thanks for that. But everything you mentioned is sort of positive movement in the direction of chess expansion, right? Are we going to, in 5 years, continue a discussion about this timeline, and one of the data points on that line then is going to be the pandemic, where we note a huge contraction, do you think? Is it going to fall out of mainstream? Or do you think it will be maintained? What do you think the relationship to our culture at large? What do you think chess's relationship will be? Will it separate? Will it fade away? Will it grow somehow? What do you think? What does the future hold?
I think the shift will be between over-the-board chess to online chess.
Even in the longer term. So in the very
In the
short
longer
term,
term, yeah. I mean, well, no, chess is growing. I mean, chess is growing worldwide. The fact that I think we have more people playing chess now than any other time. I think the numbers are around 600 million people worldwide playing chess. Its value is beyond competitive results. Its value is really the development of the brain, development of emotional intelligence, as well as things mentioned before, the logical sequencing, calculation, etc., in terms of the mathematical skills.
So we see chess.com grow a huge amount, right?
Right.
Recently, there's an article about the increase, almost 100% increase in their membership. But as I mentioned earlier, that's going to be a benefit accrued primarily to the chess organizers, right? To the owners and maybe shareholders. I'm not sure if they're private or public of chess.com. So it's growth, but it's also at the same time shrinkage. In the same way that Amazon grows, right? Online shopping grows, but brick and mortar shopping, we see it disappearing right before our eyes. JCPenney, Macy's is in trouble. You know, I mean, is chess facing the same exact scenario where the brick and mortar world of chess, even after the pandemic, is going to be damaged so badly that it might not come back?
Right. Well, I mean, again, this is not anything new. I mean, it's going to reinvent itself in various ways. I mean, chess clubs are not as popular as they used to be. I mean, when I grew up, there was the Bar Point, there was Chess City. Obviously, there was the Manhattan Chess Club. There was the Marshall Chess Club. Now, the only prominent chess club in New York is the Marshall Chess Club. A lot of it is shifted to online
play. Chess Forum, right? It's not you consider that a chess club, the Chess Forum?
Well, yeah, no. I mean, my point. Well, definitely the chess forum, but it was many of them. We have chess forum. Or as you saying, the chess forum on
still there now on Thompson.
Still there now. You know, but what I mean is, well, they don't hold tournaments there. When I'm saying chess club, I'm talking about locations where they held tournaments, and you can get a norm or you can get a USCF rating. I mean, but the forum is mostly, it doesn't make its money through people playing chess or giving tournaments. It makes its money because it's selling chess equipment. Yeah. So in essence, it's a chess supplier that allows you to play chess.
Also a community hub, though. Let me give a shout out to Imad, who is who I know quite well for a long time.
Yeah.
It is also the place. I see what you mean. It's not for the most serious chess players. Probably won't go there unless they want a cup of coffee, right? They're going to go to the Marshall or something. But there is a community of chess players that are not serious chess players, where the glue that holds them together is chess, and places like the Chess Forum. And so I think it's an important part of the chess community. But I think maybe that's a good differentiation to make. You can't play serious tournaments.
Yeah. But what Riz was talking about, the shift itself has happened because of online play. And chess, speaking about the digital revolution, there are 3 points in terms of the chess digital revolution. I mean, people often ask me to compare Fischer to Carlsen. And well, for me, Fischer was one of the great minds of chess, but Carlsen simply has better tools. Right? I mean, Carlsen can hone his skills by playing 2,000 or 3,000 games on the internet a year. So internet has radicalized, number one, my ability to recognize patterns, my ability to practice certain skill sets. Number 2, we have databases. So just to show you one of this in terms of specificity. For example, during Fisher's time, rook and bishop, we already know these equations. Let me just run back to a few of these equations, but I'm going to show you how digital reality has changed these equations. So somewhere during the classical age, we discovered that rook and bishops are better than rook and knights, meaning the majority of rook and bishop games played between rook and bishops as opposed to rook and knights. The games of rook and bishops are usually won. These piece combinations, 2 bishops are better than 2 knights, 2 bishops are better than a bishop and a knight, and the queen and knight is usually better than the queen and bishop. That was known by the top grandmasters in the world, probably as early as the 1920s, 1930s, piece combinations. But now under the specificity, we can ask through table-based, not only are they going to ask you rook and bishop, they're going to ask you, is it the same color bishop or is it opposite color bishops? Right, so this level of precision in chess was never there before. And I think the other ability that Carlsen has, besides the internet in the table basis, is any game that is lost, he can automatically go into the database and he can see hundreds of examples of how the position was played. So our ability to correct itself. When Tao played a combination in 1960, it was phenomenal. Or even the late Tao's golden period, 1957 to 1960, it was phenomenal. Now we can refute Tao's combination with a click of a mouse in a matter of seconds. Before, it took us months to refute a Tao combination if it wasn't sound.
I see your point. So yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. I was going to ask.
So chess has gone through the digital revolution, databases, analyzing engines. I mean, just to note, Carlsen recently broke the unbeaten record, the consecutive unbeaten record. I think it was 112 games. In this record, he had the aid of AlphaZero, right? So Carlsen can see moves on average, whether it's a Stockfish or whether it's AlphaZero, that are stronger than Tao, that are stronger than Fisher. The previous generations didn't have this access.
So this brings us very conveniently to my next question, because you yourself brought up AlphaGo.
AlphaZero, yeah.
AlphaZero, sorry, AlphaZero. AlphaGo is the same device, but for Go, by the way, but with similar results. But and it would essentially be the same question if I were talking to a master of Go. We're in a world now where the best chess player is no longer a human being, right? I mean, you could perhaps have argued back in the 90s that Deep Blue was, by some standards, the best chess player, but also there were some issues. There was the point made that human beings had to program Deep Blue, and so Deep Blue could never be more than the sum of its programming parts. We're now in a world where we take an AI device, feed it just the rules of chess, and allow it to sit for a few hours and just play chess against itself. At the end of a 4.5 hour period, or was it a 5 hour period, it becomes the best chess player in the world and re-perceives chess in a way that causes human beings to recalculate. The whole of chess history had been, you know, as you're mentioning the point that the old masters, although they may not have fared that well against Carlsen and modern top players, they were in their time innovators, as Tal was an innovator, until we get to the same brilliance level, but with all the extra tools, right? So a guy like Carlsen, because it's not, let's also say, it's not just the tools, because everyone has access to most of those tools, and they're not at Magnus Carlsen's level, right? So there's something within Magnus Carlsen that propels him beyond what the average player can do, even with those amazing tools, right? What does that say, do you think? I mean, I'm going to ask you to really step out of the chess box a little. What do you think the fact that an AI system with just a little bit of time and being fed only the rules, becoming better than the best human being, and that there's no longer even a contest between which is better, an AI, artificial system or biological system? Now we know definitely artificial intelligence system. What consequence do you think that could have for Well, for chess, but then let's zoom out to human society. Let's ask the greater question. If you want to go there, I'd like to go there with you. Uh, how does it change? How did that change chess, that moment? But how is that going to change society? The knowledge that human beings are not going to be the most efficient thinkers on the planet.
First thing, it's humbling, isn't it? Just a few things. First thing, I just want to go back in the chess box just for a second, and we're going to go back into the universals. Before artificial intelligence, we were already using highly advanced machines, which mean even Stockfish was rated about 3,300. So computers in general were about 500 points higher than the average, and then our best human being, let's say 2,800, someone Magnus Carlsen's acumen. So the artificial intelligence, yes, it does play itself. AlphaZero is a little bit different from Deep Blue. Deep Blue is based on a calculating bit with a database. AlphaZero doesn't need a database. It actually plays itself.
That's my point.
So what's fascinating is that it's self-correcting. And that's what makes that's intelligence, right? Because I often say that wisdom is not the absence of error. Wisdom is the absence of the same error, meaning wise people have the ability to self-correct. So the broader view of artificial intelligence, I mean, I think recently there was a AI machine that was able to create a new antibiotic, right? It's how we use the tools. What are the intentions with these tools? Can it aid in our search for a cure to COVID-19, for example? So for the chess player, we're fascinated by the ideas that the computer comes up with. It also shows us our blind spots, right? Because again, human perception is limited. We don't really see the limitations of the human perception until there is AI or there's something else other than human perception doing the calculations. But again, if it can aid in the betterment of humanity, can it solve the our environmental issues? Can it help us cure diseases? And I think AI has its possibilities. But if it's going to continue, down, let's say, some negative paths, I don't want to go into each one, but if it then yes, it could also be problematic. So I think the intention behind the tool is as important as the tool itself.
So we haven't, one important aspect of it that we have not addressed is the independence of AI, right? So right now, AI is not independent. It does not make its own, it's not mobile primarily, and it is not independent of human interaction, right? At some point, AI may get, they will be asking different questions when AI can be making decisions at systemic levels and executing them independent of human beings. We'll be in a different world then. Let me dial back just a little bit. I said earlier that AI has taught human beings how to reimagine chess, a new approach to chess, right? So I just want to ask you about that really as specifically as you can go. I am not a good enough chess player to understand what the real change was, how chess was reimagined. Can you speak to that?
All right, so first thing, I'm going to go back to a very important first world champion, William Stein's, one of his 4 principles: the attacking player always wins. The attack is based on the weakness. If you have the attack, it is your obligation to continue the attack. Otherwise, you will lose your advantage. And his 4th point is that an even positions maneuver. Now,
sorry, what was the 4th? Say it again, please.
The 4th one, an even positions maneuver, meaning there is no major weaknesses, so therefore we have to maneuver out pieces, hoping for the opponent to create a weakness so we can exploit it. It was revolutionary for its time because we naturally assumed the game was won because you were Anderson, the game was won because you were Morphy. Stein said, no, the game is won because there's something objective on the chessboard. In the absence of something being, there's no objective weakness on the chessboard, the game, the defensive player should have saved the position. Right, so that was one of our radical leaps in chess. Stein showed us that there was an immune system on the chessboard, and once the immune system is broken down through the accumulation of small advantages, the game can actually be won. So when you see the computer play, we're surprised by some of its aggressiveness and its willingness to sacrifice. It really understands this time principle, that time is more important than material. I could be down a rook pawn, right? But if I'm up a few tempos, right? And we saw this in Morphy, by the way, right? So Morphy's like the world's first great chess player, but you really see it in these programs, right? And that's what's shocking to us, how creative some of their solutions are. And it doesn't hesitate. It shows us that yes, the attack that Stein's rule. By the way, Stein studied Morphy's games. He studied Paul Morphy's games. This is for the audience. Morphy was an American chess player. He was dominant for about 10 years. Sometimes he is called the pride and sorrow of chess. Pride because he was so great of a chess player. Sorrow because he left chess at such a young age. But yeah, so what we see is this idea of time, sack, attack, right? Yet is capable of phenomenal defense as well.
You know it's funny that what you're describing is a lesson that I learned, obviously not as well as an AI system, but when you play bug house chess, one of the things you learn is how irrelevant the strength of any piece is, actually, and that time is everything, right? And the continual attacking notion, where you can just cause your opponent to react every single move to your attack, he'll never have the initiative against you, right? And you can, as your teammate passes over pieces to you, you can do it just decreases the value of any piece, right? When you can have, ready to go at any time, an extra queen, just so you can have two. You don't even have to promote a pawn, right? You just slap a queen down somewhere. So the value of that queen on a normal chessboard is like, oh my God, I've lost my queen, my most powerful piece, and it's something that how can I win the game now? When you're playing bug house, not a relevant factor at all. And it sounds like you're describing the same approach, basically. Are you saying something I didn't realize? I'm just making the connection now. Are you saying that the approach that people take when they play bug house, meaning totally ignoring piece value in favor of tempo, that's the way that all chess should be played?
Well, it's making us reevaluate the power of time versus material, which is really Morphy's major contribution. And the famous opera house games, Morphy sacrifices a knight to gain this incredible advantage in time. But you see this is consistent throughout Morphy in general. So once again, Stein studies Morphy's games. He develops these classical principles of chess, which we live by today. And the computer is showing us that, yes, some of what we thought was true, actually, might have been true, is not merely theoretical, is actually concrete. And that's one of the major contributions of it. So yeah, I mean, the attacking player, going back to Stein's, the attacking player always wins. There's nothing shy or passive about the computer. Also, defense was affected by the classical period too. We have passive defensive chess and we have active defense. Active defense is considered counterattack. Passive defense is, hey, if the guy's threatening mate, I simply defend the mate threat. Well, besides defending the mate threat, maybe you can call check, right? So which means that's considered an active version of it. And you're going to see the computer also does that. When it's in a reverse position, it chooses active defense as opposed to passive defense.
Gotcha. Very interesting. I think so. What do you predict for the world of chess for the future relative to AI? Should we just stop playing and instead start watching AI machines play against each other? Is that going to be more interesting, more advanced?
No, I think no matter how much people are going to want to see, I mean, because we have the computer world championships every year. Whether Fritz wins it or Stockfish wins it, we have the computer world championships. No one's really interested in the computer world championships. But everybody wants to see the top players in the world play. Yeah.
All right. Jerald, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a really wide-ranging and interesting interview, and I hope that maybe after the pandemic we can get together again and see how things have changed and discuss again how, if any of our colleagues have run into some trouble, maybe we can figure out some plans how we might be able to help them out, some advice for them, and just see where the world of chess is in a few months, right? As we roll around to September, October, Would you be willing to come back and talk to me again?
Definitely.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining me. Folks at home, thank you very much. I am Phil Rosenberg. This has been the Phil Rosenberg Show. We'll be back in a few days. Check out my YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click that button right down there. You know the button I'm talking about, the one right over there. Or is it the other side? I don't know, whatever. Click it, and you'll see all the episodes that I have for you. Have a wonderful day. Jerald, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you again for joining me.
To be continued, Phil.